Welcome to the Marketing Industry Podcast, where real conversations meet real strategy. Each episode, we dive into the industries that keep Australia moving, talking with the leaders, innovators, and everyday operators shaping what's next. So settle in, turn it up, and let's get into it.
Hi everybody, Michelle O'Hara here from Marketing. I'm lucky today to have Kyle Humphrey from HJ Recruitment with me. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey Michelle, how you doing?
Good, thank you. So Kyle, you've got on your website that you're the best blue-collar recruitment agency in Australia. That's a big call, but you've got a lot of stuff going on that can back that up. So just start by sharing with our audience a little bit about your history and how you ended up where you did.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, starting out as a tradesman, 15 years ago, as I suppose a young kid, just trying to be able to break into the trade, like most kids did back then, wanting to be able to just improve in life, be able to afford, to do things and go out with your mates and be able to travel and all those fun things you get to do. So I suppose the backing of that is being a fourth generation plumber. Is that for me personally, being a mechanical plumber by trade, and investing, realistically 15 years into it, it created a massive inlet for me over the last 14 months in particular, now transitioning obviously into the recruitment industry, and, now I suppose business owner as well. So it's a surreal moment, I guess, across the board, just working with people that in my shoes, and I suppose being able to encourage people that just because you're a tradesman doesn't mean it's going to be that forever. I think that's probably the biggest upside.
That's brilliant. And just share some of the challenges you might have had, because that is a big call going from tradesperson to business owner. And you would have noticed a few changes, because I think sometimes, people think it's really easy, but not necessarily. What are a couple of things, just share with us that, a few challenges that you faced along the way or learnings that you got from the process?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest one is obviously, realistically, when you think about, the recruitment industry, being a tradesman for so long, is that it doesn't have a great reputation. And the reputation within it is so embedded of being such a sales-driven background that the person on the other side of the phone is essentially calling you so then they can make a dollar. So I think the biggest challenge for me is trying to change the perception behind what a recruiter looks like from a tradesman's perspective, because I've been the tradesman and been in that side of it, and not just the perspective from the tradesman background, but understanding the business point of view as well. Working closely as, project manager, and working closely, within a business where I was working with, a couple of best mates in regards to growing their business as a whole. So understanding the background and just trying to find good people, it's hard, but being able to find people that you can trust to work with within being able to pick up that process, it's even harder again. And recruitment as a whole, it doesn't have a great reputation because people are so quick to just go, yeah, let's get it going. We can just kind of sort things out as we go. Whereas it's like, well, you don't understand the concept of what you're actually working with. And when you do, it's so easy because you create partnerships.
And you would have some tremendous, that whole thing of staffing is the biggest challenge all businesses have at the moment, right? But you would have a very large network, and I would imagine you and all the other generations in your family to call upon, because you're all quite a tight-knit community, I've found. Everyone knows everyone. Is that what you found?
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think when we talk about the trades industry, when you get specific within it, the electrical trade, the plumbing trade, even when you talk about construction, and then my specific trade that I worked on, the mechanical field, in particular, HVAC. It's as large as it is, it's so small, and understanding that people know people and people cross over so many paths, whether it be interstate or not. Like, I transitioned and, relocated as a whole from Victoria, over to, Brisbane, and ultimately looking after things across the nation, but in particular around New South Wales and the ACT. I suppose, like, hub point for Australia, it's pretty specific. Most big organisations venture out from there, or create, international bodies from Sydney, or Melbourne. So I suppose on that side is those relationships. They bounce around, and you never know. Literally, you could be, in Sydney one day, and then in Brisbane 2 years later, and all of a sudden someone that creates a connection, someone that, my father's worked with or my grandfather's worked with, a mate's. I suppose that connection, it stays there forever because the industry's so small and so niche. So it's great. It's great, honestly. It creates those relationships that last forever, which is always good.
That's awesome. That's awesome because of it. Yeah, it's nice too that you're doing it. You've got a completely different angle to come. It's nice for recruitment. So rather than just finding a body, you talked about, like before when we talked, you talked about putting the right person in the job, which would actually save companies money as well. So knowing, I guess, the guys or girls, so well, what's your take on, putting the right person in the job or just putting anyone in the job, which I think sort of a lot of sometimes the bigger recruitment companies will tend to do.
Yeah, well, I mean, typically speaking, is that like an organisation approaches somebody to be able to provide a solution. That's ultimately why they go down that pathway, is that they understand that they're not specific to being able to focus on that side of the industry. But I think the other side of it too is that their strengths don't lie within recruitment. Their strengths lie within being able to operate a business. Now, they're very different. Being able to operate a business and being able to bring people on board, they're so far apart from each other that actually understanding the day-to-day out on site and then understanding the recruitment side it gives, I suppose, really great depth within the type of people. So you understand that no matter what business and industry, some people just don't work for companies and vice versa. So it's actually not that hard to find the right people. What is hard is to find good quality people. And that's probably the hardest part is, in today's environment, we have a deprived market where it's lots of people with, great skill sets and, great experience, but some of them just aren't great people. Whereas the great people that may not have the experience or may not have the skill set necessary, that they actually have better attributes because they're good value. They add more value to the culture. They add more value to, business-minded people, and not just that, they're enjoyable to rock up to every single day. And that's half the battle. If you enjoy where you go to for work and the people that you're working around, is that it creates an environment where you actually want to learn and you want to be able to gain more experience because you're enjoying who it is that you're experiencing it with. So I think the culture set is a really big point within the way that I operate. But I think that the industry as a whole, being able to understand the individuals that align with the organisations, and when you've been able to create that trust within a partnership of a business, then that reliance and responsibility just, kind of comes on board, with you, and you're able to do that at, I suppose, the trust that you've been able to create with that client in particular. And I think that's very special. It's not just a partnership. It's not just, a client and a recruiter. It's very much a personal relationship as well, which I think that's probably where I thrive in and around, being able to actually have a genuine laugh with, extremely great business owners and operators that own multi-million dollar businesses. that, genuinely understand that, hey, the reason why I stepped into this side of the industry is because I want to help. I want to try and help as many people as I can and as many organisations.
Nice, nice. And also, earlier when we were chatting, we were talking about the HVAC industry and how you made the comment that women in trades have great attention to detail. Can you just, I found that fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more? I mean, you're quite passionate about women in trades, etc., which I think is fantastic. Can you share a little bit more about that whole area for us?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for one, I want to be able to advocate for women. I want to be able to be a voice and a platform for, women within trades and services. I suppose a big part of my life prior, I suppose separate to, the recruitment or even my trade is I focused on basketball for a very big part of my life. And I'm now a head coach of a Division 1 Queensland State League. And it is a women's team. So I'm the head of, I suppose, the women's senior competition. So I work with women on a day-to-day, but from the HVAC side of things is their attention to detail is just unbelievable. And in terms of like the perception, I think that where males really thrive is, being really good with their hands. I think there are, certain individuals that, are really, really clicked on and can move very quickly in certain environments. But within the service sector of HVAC and diagnostics, women just get it. And I don't know what it is, but their attention to detail and actually being able to break down an individual component and spend, maybe that extra 30 seconds, whereas though sometimes, us men, we kind of get to a point where we're like, what, let's just get a new unit in. The client is probably not going to be all opposed to that side of it, but it could mean, lots of these 30 seconds equate over time into certain services, especially around ongoing maintenance and diagnostics, where that over a big period consumes and compounds, and that might end up being 2-3 days worth of time that you've invested into one site, and being able to find a solution for your client where they're not having to outlay a massive cost on a new piece of equipment and being able to provide that solution. Not just that, it's satisfying. It's a really great thing when you can diagnose something and then actually find the problem, let alone provide the solution. I just think that, women just have a really good knack for it. And I want to be able to try and advocate for that. And I suppose being on this side of things now and having a platform to be able to do that, I think that just being able to give women in trades, and I think just switch the focus, really. Like, it's easy for organisations when they go through onboarding to kind of target, young guys coming out of school. Whereas as a mature age apprentice, most guys are pretty happy to transition and, bounce around. Whereas I just feel as though that when you get women, they're super passionate within their knowledge and wanting to be able to understand things and really focus on that. And I think that's powerful. And it brings a little bit of karma to the industry where, you're on site with a female. Most blokes will turn around and be a little bit more cleaner. I think that provides a little side of things too. But the other side, they're really, they love banter too. I think that it's fantastic where women and men can integrate and work together. There's definitely strong suits for everyone and individually, but I just think that women within trades is so powerful for our industry. And in terms of depth and growth, I think that that's the biggest part of our market that we can target and provide solutions around.
Yeah. How do we get the women to get more involved?
Yeah, well, I think being proactive. I mean, for one, I think that there's never enough government incentive. And I don't just think that's just for women. I think that's as a trade as a whole. I don't think that there's enough government funding or incentive behind things. I always think there can always be more, especially when you talk about infrastructure. I mean, we got the Olympics coming up in Brisbane, obviously pretty soon. So there's massive infrastructure going on, and I know that there's going to be some organisations out there, because I know that some of mine have kind of, I suppose, got a bit of an eye on what's going on in Brisbane at the moment to maybe provide an avenue and opportunity to expand. And I think that expansion and that feeder can create such an injection for the industries across the board within trades, where we can focus and maybe target and promote, more women within, have more incentives behind that. And I know that, some males out there might turn around and go, oh, well, there's a real, men versus women mentality sometimes. And I think that it's just not there anymore. I think that there's a complete understanding that just people in general are good to have involved. And if they're good people, then there's a knack for everyone. And I really think that's powerful, that if not only organisations can push this, that the financial side of things is that the government will get on board, because they won't have a choice. And I think just the incentive side of things of, pre-packaging, being able to allow for, young apprentices to have more access to equipment, tools, uniforms, subsidies around being able to provide further training, especially specialised areas. So it fast tracks things too. I know that, when you get an international, they come over and they try and start to obviously, migrate their qualification that they've had overseas to Australia. They can do that full time pretty quickly. Well, why not have the incentive the same for, men and women for Australia? As a whole, is that, well, the investment is they understand that a business wants them to work so then they can deliver their product. But I think the other side of it too is that short-term investment creates long-term growth for a massive part, where realistically, injection into the market, I just think that there's so much upside to having women come on board. And if there's more incentives in behind that and a bit more of a focus from organisations, then targeted wise, is that the industry is just going to evolve, and not just that, but grow. And I think that's an untapped source that the industry hasn't seen before.
And it has to, because there's not going to be enough guys, to be honest, to get everything done, right? So
well, there's not. I mean, there's not already. I think,
exactly.
I think there's not already, really. When you talk about it, I think that the industry itself being lacking of that training and upskilling mentality, but at the same time, the big push from, schools and universities is that, well, we have such a powerful social platform nowadays, is that there's a lot of people that aren't going into the trades industry because they're not having to work so hard to be able to earn a really good wage, which then switches a little bit of that mentality behind our tradespeople that, genuinely are passionate. I've had conversations with guys that, mid-40s that have been working in a completely separate industry, and they call me and say, Kyle, it's not something that I woke up on the side of the bed and gone, I want to be a tradesman today. It's, for the last 25 years that they've been thinking about wanting to be able to get into a trade, but maybe 25 years ago, financially, they couldn't do that because money-wise, it wasn't there. And, they have a house, have bills, have all those types of things. So financially, they weren't where they need to be. And, at a point now where it's like, well, financially, I'm okay. I just want to be able to do what I'm passionate about, and creating that pathway, not just for, I suppose, the younger generation, but the mature generation too. I think that in itself has its own space too.
Nice. What did the family, all the fathers and grandfathers, say about you going into business?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that as a fourth generation plumber, the reflection was that, what are you doing? really, from the get-go, was like, really? Like, this is what you're going to be getting into? And I think that that's probably just based off of the reputation, as we spoke about at the start, is that, like,
Yeah,
I mean, the
interesting.
recruitment industry as a whole is, it's a bunch of people that, do sales, and I don't operate like that. And I think
Like
just
that.
being able to change that whole perception, is that, like, people value people. And when you value people, you value people's time. And I suppose across the board, when everyone values everyone's time, everyone's on the same level playing field because they understand time is money.
Yeah.
So I think that, when I got into it, there was definite pushback from, my fathers, and I suppose before me, around moving into this side of things. But I think now, being in what I do, and my late father, passing away a year ago, or a little over a year ago, I think, looking down, really seeing me thriving. And I think not just that, being able to give back to the industry that I'm so passionate about, being able to
Nice.
provide for so many younger people, and mature people. I'm only 30 years old. So I think being able to provide an avenue for, the before and afters, and not just that, but a different pathway that people can go, I can spend 20 years in the trade and
Mm.
become a businessman. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much out there, and I think being able to really prioritize where people fit within it, and the focus, and sometimes the shift to, like, it wasn't something that in my wildest dreams I would have ever thought that I'd move into. And there was a number of conversations that I had with our founder around, I suppose, moving into, what I do now, and now, transitioning into CEO and doing my own, and whatnot. It's pretty surreal, but at the same time, being able to really create, I suppose, a vision for so many onlookers, but as
Yeah.
well as, create a platform for, people out there to reach out to, where they feel like they're trusted.
Yeah, nice. Nice. Gosh, you're only 30, jeez.
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it, right?
That's
I mean,
fantastic.
don't get me wrong. I definitely don't feel like that, but
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Um, nice. And look, one of the other things when we were talking previously that I really loved, and it stuck with me was you mentioned that when you changing the way that people look at the people that they're putting in place. So, for example, if you're putting a project manager in place, rather than looking at the fact that they are costing you 150,000 or whatever, you were talking about the return on investment from and the value that you'll receive from them. And I really liked your angle on that. If you could talk about, how you view that side of things, because it really shifted my thinking about my people. I mean, I love my people, but,
yeah,
but just more so that, they're not just a number, and they're not, it can get like that when people are searching for staff. So I really liked how you sort of said, but hang on, look at the value that they're making you and saving you down the track. So that's,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, for your typical, like, project managers and site supervisors, coordinators, is that, like, they provide so much relief in the not only the day to day, but the behind the scenes work. Is that there's so much stuff that those people do that doesn't
yeah,
really get looked at. Where at times, some of those project managers, where majority of their time they'll be off the tools, and they'll be coordinating and making sure that everyone's running smoothly, I suppose dealing with the headaches that come along with the day
mm,
to day within trades, is that they're still on the phone at, 8 o'clock in the afternoon, and making sure that tomorrow's set up, or
yeah,
making sure that everything's running smoothly and is on track, but also being able to manage people. Like, I think that perception behind the value that somebody brings, the return in
mm,
investment, is that it's them being able to completely take a load off as, founders or CEOs, or, operation managers. When you've got somebody that you can share the load with, is that it's
mm,
unmeasurable. that money that when you focus realistically within the industry is, you're looking at hourly rates and, even salaries, I suppose, when you get towards, operation sides. But when you talk about what that return looks like, is that without that person, how much are you actually up for and how much are you losing out on? Because it's not just the hours that they put in, it's the people and the relationships and the communication that they have that is just valued so much more. I think that one of the biggest things that I come across is when I speak to guys that have been in an organisation for, 10 years, and this is going to sound so backwards, but I spend so much time on communicating with guys that work with organisations that call me and things aren't working. And my first question to them is, well, have you spoken to your boss about it? And 90% of the time they turn around and say no. I'm like, well, have the conversation with your boss. Like, actually communicate with them, because the loss on value when you lose out on somebody being around for 10 years nowadays, it is massive. The gap that they leave within a business is that it's not the day-to-day and the work. It's the relationships that they have with the clients that they deliver the work for, and internal of understanding the business. That creates so much. And I know that the industry really promotes that, everyone's replaceable. But when you get 10 years into your tenure, it makes that decision really hard. And I think being able to communicate as tradesmen and tradeswomen, it's being able to understand that the value goes both ways. And when you've got an organisation that values you just as much as you value them, then it's a happy place to be. And not just that, but you're getting your return on your investment tenfold. And not just from the client's perspective, but you get the way of life as, somebody working within a business that's been there long term, because there's very much that push-pull, give and take scenario where when you need a day off, it's not a question. It's take two if you need. You know what I mean? And it's really that environment that they're able to create.
Nice. I think there will be a lot of people listening to this and going and having a conversation with their department heads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in case they haven't asked that question or said anything.
I mean, and this is conversation that I think within our industry, people shy away from, because they're so focused on, being able to provide, somebody to come into a position. I just think that, as a tradesman coming into this industry, is that positions come and go. They're going to come, they're going to go, they might change. But when you talk about your relationships, is that they withstand the test of time. There's a lot of people that, honestly, I've met maybe twice, and they seem to know me like the back of their hand. And that's probably through not only generations of hard work from, my grandfather, my dad, but, other family members, of being able to be that feeder within. And that, I think that reciprocates on the other end for, your good quality tradesmen, is that they create a reputation within the industry.
Yeah,
and those good tradesmen, they're easy to be able to bring on board when they're available, but it's being able to find them when they're available, and most of them are not.
No, well, you want to hang on to them, don't you? Because they're so good.
Absolutely.
But it's a really good point that you're making to make sure from the employer's point of view as well, to have those conversations and just be aware, to be grateful for your good stuff that you have. Sometimes I think they could probably take them for granted, and because they have been with them for quite a while, and sometimes forget to just remind them to say thank you. I think that's a big one. No, that's really good.
Yeah.
So, look, we're almost coming to the end. Look at that. So just tell me, what do you think, Kyle, the future of recruitment and in the trades industry, blue collar, looks like? And what should, what should employers do? Feel free to give yourself a plug. do to make sure that they're going to be able to ride through what is going to be a very, very busy period coming with the Olympics, particularly here in Brisbane?
Yeah. Well, I think, just nationwide, the industry is booming at the moment. We've got that much infrastructure going on across the nation, let alone, internationally. I definitely work with some clients internationally, and, being able to promote other ways of being able to bring in trades. There's definitely a part of what I'm doing at the moment of being able to kind of create an opportunity and experience for, US citizens to come into Australia, that provides a pathway of not only injection within the trades industry, but really being able to provide another source of solution for a deprived market where there's some really great quality tradesmen out there that, when they get given a shot, they just thrive. So there's a big part of a space that I'm wanting to be able to, work across that isn't just within a short pool. It's, a pretty large pool, open-minded around many avenues. And I think that, in terms of growth and, the recruitment industry, it will look different over the next, 6 months significantly, with obviously artificial intelligence, coming into play a lot more, is that there's such a massive movement around the speed and being able to work across what we do, is that humans just don't have as quick a functions as what some, software does have. And I know that from a business operations standpoint, is that when you think back about the days of writing an invoice out for a customer, is that now everyone has a platform. They have a CRM, they utilize their business management, no one's handwriting their invoices anymore. And that's just being able to see the evolution of business within the industry. Now, this will happen across the recruitment sector as well. I'm looking forward to it. And I think that, obviously across the recruitment sector, people can get in touch with me, whether it's through our HJ platform or through my LinkedIn. I'm always open to conversation. And whether that's being just having a chat and reaching out, or, if it's just, wanting to actually find out some more, and have a genuine conversation, I'm happy to be able to communicate. I want to be able to help as many people as I can nationwide, let alone, organisations thrive within the industry that I'm so passionate about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I think, Kyle, you're going to absolutely boom further in your business. And I will make sure when we put all this up that we'll tag you as well, so the whole network can have a look if they need to get in touch with you. But I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and enjoy your time in Melbourne while you're down there.
No, I will do. I mean, I know I'm definitely catching up with a few friends, a few family, a few clients that I haven't been able to catch up with as of yet, which I'm super excited about, especially one in particular, being, a powerful woman within the industry, and a national GM. And I think that just creates a really good avenue for, young women and women working, across the board, where there's so many avenues and people out there that want to help. It's just being able to find the right people to be able to do that. So I appreciate you bringing me on board.